What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review Jackass Best and Last, the fifth official movie in the Jackass franchise, although there have been a lot of .5 editions released over the years with a lot of the outtakes, in addition to the 3 seasons of the show, as well as the 4 seasons of Wild Boys, which focus primarily but not exclusively on Steve-O and Chris Pontius. The point being that we've been watching these guys break their bones and set their testicles on fire for over a quarter century, so you probably already know if you're a fan or not. If these guys make you laugh, of course you're going to see this latest movie. The only question is, how many times? It's 90 straight minutes of middle-aged men running around buck-ass nude, shitting and puking and getting injured repeatedly, all for our viewing pleasure. Is it sophisticated entertainment? Nope. Is it high art? Not really. But is it funny? Yes, it is. And that is the only criteria that matters when judging a comedy. And so far, this is the funniest movie I've seen all year.
Welcome to the first day of our last film.
What are you feeling?
I'm sad.
Does it make you sad, Chris?
No, I'm not in touch with my emotions.
So Jackass Best and Last is by no means the funniest movie in the franchise. However, it did make me howl. There's one gag involving Wee Man, and I don't want to give it away, but let's just say there's a hole that's part of this obstacle course, and through the hole he can find like a clue that will allow them to unlock other parts of the obstacle course, and we the audience can see what's on the other side, and the camera keeps cutting back to his face and his confusion as he's feeling something, let's just say unpleasant, but it's not painful. But I've been basically cracking up for the last 5 hours, remembering this one bit over and over and over again. So not only was that bit really funny while watching the movie, any joke that keeps coming back to you and making you involuntarily laugh hours later, well then it's doing something right. And there were a few other scenes where I was wheezing and smiling as I was trying to catch my breath. But if you're a fan of these movies, I have to admit, a good chunk of this movie is a retread with highlights of their best bits from past movies. And I'm always happy to revisit those stunts from the past, but I prefer just to rewatch those movies, especially the second and third films, which I think are the best. Although it must be said, Jackass Forever gave us the Silence of the Lambs sketch, which is an all-time fave for me.
God damn.
Oh, fuck you guys!
In any case, not only does this movie give us some classic stunts, but it also takes us way back to the late 90s with some really hard to find scenes which MTV refused to allow on cable back in the day. And for me, that was discovering lost gold. I mean, those scenes, I've always heard about those scenes, but 1 or 2 of them are absolutely incredible. And you really feel like you're going back into a time capsule to a bygone era. But I'd say at least half the movie is made up of new scenes. And the cast in these new scenes is pretty much the cast that we saw in Jackass Forever. A lot of the old veterans as well as a lot of the new faces. But in general, everything about this movie feels like a farewell to the series. And I know they've been saying that ever since Jackass 3D. I mean, the closing credit sequence to Jackass 3D was basically like a trip down memory lane. And here they are, still doing the trip down memory lane 15 years later. But one of the main reasons they're bringing this series to a close is that Johnny Knoxville can no longer do the big stunts that he likes to do. He likes doing big stunts with bulls and rockets. He basically likes to be the craziest guy on the team who's willing to do the craziest fucking shit that nobody else would dare to do. But he's just had way too many head injuries over the years, especially the injury in Jackass Forever when that bull just sent him somersaulting through the air, and when he landed, he was snoring. I mean, he was deeply unconscious. He was basically in a coma at that point. It was a gnarly injury, and so sadly, regrettably, he now has to hang up his spurs. But for my money, even if Johnny Knoxville can no longer risk life and limb for these movies, I'd be happy just to watch him host future installments. But if he and director Jeff Tremaine and producer Spike Jonze and the rest of the gang are ready to call it a day, I'll just say thank you to the entire cast and crew for giving us so many happy years of watching you run around naked, getting attacked by wild animals, while shoving one unholy thing after another right up your asses. It's been quite a journey. And my journey with these lovable maniacs started before the gang had really been fully assembled. I was at this late night after party at an apartment in New York. We were all tripping balls on ecstasy, and someone tossed in the VHS cassette for CKY2K, and that was my first introduction to Bam Margera and Ryan Dunn, both of whom appear in some highlights in this latest movie. And then, like a lot of people, I discovered the full gang with the original show on MTV, a show which feels positively quaint and innocent in comparison to what the movies eventually evolved into. And these fucking lunatics have been making me crack up ever since. And I'm not proud. I'm well aware that plenty of people take one look at one scene from these movies, scream, "That's disgusting," and never watch another second for the rest of their lives. But for me, this is arguably the best comedy franchise of the 21st century. And even though nowadays it's a bit like watching the later Marx Brothers movies, where they all started to get a little long in the tooth, I still fucking love watching the camaraderie, the shit talking, and best of all, the double crosses. Anytime a dumbass is tricked into volunteering for one gag, which ends up turning into quite another. And Aaron McGahey, you've been a very good sport over the years, even though with friends like these, you don't really need enemies. And speaking of which, this is the first movie I can remember where they started including some scenes showing some of the tension behind the scenes, especially between the older guys and the younger guys, because you can tell the older guys, they're over it. Like Chris Pontius, he's not going to risk life and limb anymore. He's happy to like get completely nude and go high jumping and that sort of thing, but he's not going to like, get chased around by grizzly bears, running the crazy shit they used to do on Wild Boys. But I noticed there are a few times in this movie, I was like, oh man, there's like a little bit of almost like on-set hazing going on, and perhaps there's some tension behind the scenes where everybody's just starting to feel a little bit over it. But the younger generation, basically all the new faces that I got exposed to in Jackass Forever, I feel like they could do like a spin-off show. I feel like if Jeff Tremaine and Spike Jonze and Johnny Knoxville just wanted to produce, what they really need is just a really good director who knows how to create these kinds of crazy stunts. But I feel like the young generation should grab that baton and carry it forward. On the other hand, making these kinds of movies over the long term, they can really fuck you up, because a lot of members of the cast, especially the older members of the cast, have made no secret of the fact that there's some serious substance abuse going on back in the day. Obviously, Ryan Dunn lost his life, not while making one of the movies, but that kind of devil may care, like riding hell for leather, like risk-seeking lifestyle can inevitably lead to horrible injuries and horrible consequences. And obviously, like Johnny Knoxville, he's suffering from all these horrible injuries. I mean, there's a video on YouTube where he goes through all of his horrible injuries over the course of his career on the Jackass movies as well as other movies. And I'm amazed the guy can even still walk. Or Dave England, he's missing one of his testicles. Bam Margera, he's really wrestled with substance abuse issues over the years. And even the younger members of the cast have their scars now like poopies. He got bitten by a goddamn shark while making Jackass Forever. So once again, there is a toll to be paid in making these movies, but these movies can open the door to other opportunities. Obviously, Steve-O has a huge podcast these days. Johnny Knoxville is the new host of Fear Factor. So you just got to weigh the pros and cons anytime you sign up for making one of these fucking movies. And on this latest movie, when you see the camaraderie with the original cast and all the hugs and tears that they're saying farewell to this franchise, obviously, on the whole, it's been more or less a positive journey. And we, the audience, we've been enjoying it every step of the way. I mean, there's so many fucking legendary sketches and stunts and bits along the way, like Steve-O going into the Porta-John and getting launched into the sky. I mean, that's one of the, just in terms of like the physics, that's an incredible stunt. Or Johnny Knoxville riding that rocket where an explosive piece went out the side that could have very easily ripped his guts entirely open. Or Steve-O going across an alligator pit with meat hanging out of his underwear and then finally just dropping down in the alligators, because obviously you need some footage, otherwise the sketch is no fun. I mean, the prevailing attitude for all these guys is basically the more you suffer and the more miserable you are, the better the footage and the better the movie. So none of them want to be treated horribly, but they know the more misery that they can endure over the course of the movie, the better chance those scenes are going to make it into the movie and make people laugh. And so they quite literally have sacrificed life and limb for our viewing pleasure for decades now. So I think they can all take a bow and walk off into the sunset with their dignity intact, or more or less intact, because I feel like as the movies have progressed, they've just leaned more and more into the idea of just getting nude and shoving things up each other's asses, because as they can't do the stunts that they used to do on like skateboards and parachutes and all that crap, they're like, all right, well, let's just do something completely disgusting. Like in this movie, I don't know if I should give away sketches or not, but let's just say they play Twister after drinking something that's going to cause a lot of spontaneous diarrhea, and it's just fucking repulsive. I mean, there are parts of the movie I was like, like choking back the vomit. If you don't like to feel nausea, well, perhaps this movie is not for you. But if you enjoy a little nausea combined with some physical misery and comedy, then by all means, check it out. But I do find it interesting that in the span of 1 month in the summer of 2026, we've seen the return of two comedy franchises which basically launched at the exact same time. Scary Movie and Jackass. And I was born in 1976, so I welcome the return of both of these franchises, because in my 20s, both of them made me laugh like hell. But the existential question is, when are we going to see some filmmakers in their 20s and 30s launch new comedy franchises that can be as popular and as big a phenomenon as like Obsession was for the horror genre? I feel like comedy has the same potential to really pop and go crazy the way that the horror genre does, but you need the comedians, you need the talent to do it. And who knows, maybe some of the younger cast members of the Jackass franchise will manage to pull it off. Or maybe some of the younger members of the Wayans family will manage to pull it off. But I feel like the appetite is there for some new comedy franchises and some new comedy experiences. Like, even if people don't know that the appetite is there, sometimes people don't know what they like until they see it. And, sometimes you need to see Steve-O getting a prostate exam from a robot before you know, oh, you know what? My life is more complete thanks to that scene. And I do think the comedy genre has the best capacity for giving joy to people's lives. There's something about the way you feel after a good comedy movie that's unlike any other genre or type of movie that you can watch. When I was watching Jackass 5 earlier today, I mean, I was just in a state of like rapturous euphoria, just having so much goddamn fun. And as I left the theater, I just felt elation. I felt so much glee. And it wasn't even remotely the best Jackass movie in the franchise. It doesn't take much for a comedy movie to have a really positive impact on your life, even if they're exploring subject matter as depraved as that is being explored within the Jackass movies. But at this point, I think I've run out of things to say. It's hard to review a comedy beyond saying it's funny or it's not. In this case, it's funny. Check it out, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, become a member, all that good stuff. Hope everybody has an amazing weekend at the movies, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.